It's so funny how we talk about people coming out of spiritual closets, but now we're talking about people coming out of science closets that have been in the spiritual space. This is the first time I've had this type of conversation to be like, I'm very spiritual, but don't tell anyone. Like, I'm scientific as well. Like, I love this.
It's real, and it's like that. It's like that, especially in my space in studying in university, things like that. Before, you don't want to hint too much. Like, you don't go in wearing your crystals. Like, you've got to be really reserved.
Welcome to the Enlighten Podcast, the enlightened journey of life. Because we're not just here to chase enlightenment, we are here to live life, to embody all aspects of ourselves, to bring the sacred into every day. I'm your host, Jen Hamilton, self-mastery mentor, tantra guide, and sacred rebel at heart. This podcast is a devotion to the art of knowing thyself. Through solo snippets, raw musings, and deep conversations with epic guests, we explore the sacred, the sensual, and the spiritual, diving deep into self-exploration and always leaving you with something to take away. This isn't just a podcast, it's a portal to awaken, to liberate, to remember who you truly are. It is an honor to have you here. Let's get enlightened. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightenment Podcast. I am your host, Jen, and my very special guest today is Elle Embers. Elle is a renowned soul therapist and international best-selling author, celebrated for her unique ability to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. Rooted in the belief that true healing must address the mind, body, and soul, Elle combines intuitive energetics with evidence-based psychological practices to facilitate deep, lasting transformation. Known for her exceptional mediumship and trance-channeling abilities, Elle seamlessly weaves together the physical and spiritual realms. Her work spans a wide range of energetic modalities, including Past Life Regression, Theta Healing, Reiki, and more. Backed by extensive training in holistic counselling, psychology, and neuroscience, she empowers clients to explore the energetic root of their challenges while gaining a deep understanding of how the mind and nervous system shape their lived experience. Elle's multidimensional approach offers a safe, sacred, and grounded space for healing, providing guidance that is both heart-led and evidence-informed. Elle is an absolute delight. We had such an amazing conversation going to all different realms and dimensions. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Enlighten Podcast. I am joined by very special guest, Elle, soul therapist Elle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
I've been seeing you. I've seen you around Brisbane and some of the work that you do, and love all of the stuff that you do. I'm so excited to dive into this chat today because I just learned something new about you as well. That you're currently studying your PhD. Let's start with soul therapist. So, like, I love that. Just that name itself just feels cozy. I feel like I just want to like cuddle up under a blanket and have a cup of tea and a chat with you. Like that's what that feels like. What's a soul therapist? What is it that you do?
It's basically an umbrella term that really dives into a lot of different modalities, right? So I actually grew up as a psychic medium from the age of 4 and really had no one to lead the way.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing much back then. Hey.
Yeah, like the 90s were a different time. You didn't have Google to be like, yeah, I'm going to Google soul therapists or psychics.
Yeah, we had mood rings though.
Yeah, and we had 1-800 numbers. Yeah, like we'll call the psychic and she'll tell us who the love of our life is. It was like all we knew. So yeah, it was a rough time, and I really kind of spent a lot of my life just trying to figure out how crazy I was. So that led me to psychology and psychiatrists being like, hey, please medicate me for something.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah. I was like, I see things, I hear things. Surely this is like borderline schizophrenia. Something's going on here. And I never fit a diagnosis. So after that point, I was like, okay, like I clearly need to learn how to embrace and do the trust fall. And I think that's a big thing with spirituality and science, right? Is everyone thinks that they are opposing forces. And really, they are two main pillars of being human.
Yes.
So it's really coming to terms with we need both. And when I went through my awakening and my experience and dove into a million different modalities,
as we do, yeah,
the main ones being past life regression and learning to channel and learning to embrace my psychic abilities. And it kind of, it led me to see everyone else in their awakenings and feeling like they were losing their grip on reality. So I was like, okay, we need to kind of bridge a gap here between science and spirituality. And so that's what led me to psychology and neuroscience and intertwining that into everything that I do. And it's really, really changed the way that I show up in the world, changed the way that my clients respond to things. And that's what's led me to the extending that work into the PhD.
I love that. What's the topic of your PhD?
We're still narrowing that down.
Right, okay.
It's tough because I go with one aspect, and I go with, a lot of deja vu and how our brain is actually having a little micro seizure when that happens, but also that's more of a simultaneous or an instantaneous psychological, physiological response, right? But there's more to it when it comes back in terms of timelines, right? And that hasn't been researched enough. And so, what if if you just put your cup down and you're like, cool, like I literally just put this here a minute ago. That's your brain having a seizure, right? Little micro seizure, little misfire. But if you are recalling something that's happened 10 years ago, a bit of a deja vu in that sense, or potentially feeling a sense of deja vu and not really knowing where it comes from, there's not as much research around that. And so I keep kind of leaning towards that, but then I go into belief systems and I go into all these other things and I'm like, shit. I'm too all over the place.
I love that. Where is neuroscience sitting in the space of spirituality now? Like, is it expanding at a rapid rate to, I guess, incorporate more of the what we would call spiritual stuff to actually give the science behind it?
Yes, I am seeing a lot more expansion on this. People are more interested because I think, we've come across people in our everyday lives that are just really dismissive of spirituality. And they have a really scientific outlook or logical outlook. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist, etc. And they kind of stumble through life living a little bit of a mundane existence. But then you have the other side of the scale where, we're all airy-fairy and we're very spiritual and we're trusting in everything. And, sometimes, we look at the opposing force and we go, who's borderlining psychosis more? Like,
right?
Where is this happening? So it's like if you go to, I don't know, someone who worked in corporate and was very logically minded and said, trust the process. Like my guide's telling me and my intuition's telling me, they'd be like, take some meds. Okay.
Yeah.
But then, on the other side, the spiritual folk, we're like, come on, you've got to trust. Like, why can't you experience more than just what's here? Like you're limiting your human experience.
Yeah.
Take some meds.
Yeah.
Take some shrooms. Take some plant medicine. Come on, open up a bit.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Tell us about the types of clients that are coming to see you. Where are they at in their life? Like, what are they coming to see you for?
Oh, okay. So it does vary. I do have a lot of clients that kind of come to me when Western medicine fails. Whether it be from a sense of they are stepping into spirituality and they are just kicking in their intuition, just kicking into their guides. But I also get people that have fertility issues and medical world can't explain why. There's no medical reason as to why you can't fall pregnant. Same with cancer patients, things like that as well, which is something that past life regression and timeline work has done a lot of good for.
Yeah.
I've had several women come into my space with fertility issues for various different reasons. And one I always talk about is the one that she had no medical reason, no medical diagnosis. And she was like, I'm at my wit's end. I've lost all hope. Yeah. And it's like, if medicine can't tell me what's wrong with me, all I'm left with is the crushed dreams of never having a family. And so she's like, I'm willing to give anything a try. I was like, okay, like let's see what happens. And so we ended up diving into a bit of soul therapy and a little bit of past life regression. And through her past life experience, we found that she had lost a child in a previous life. And so what her subconscious had taken from that was, if your body doesn't have a baby in this life, you can't possibly go through that trauma again. And so it was an act of self-protection. But moving through emotional and energetic release processes through that experience, she came out the other side and she now has a beautiful baby girl.
I love that.
And it's insane.
Yeah.
It's literally insane. I've got cancer patients that, you know, had past life regressions of self-sacrificing and came back into his present world where he was like, wow, okay, I'm still sacrificing a lot of myself. And he didn't have a great internal dialogue, didn't have great beliefs around how he looked, who he was, etc. And his skin cancer were really showing up on his face, a lot of lesions. And he was sick of being a pincushion, which is quite fair enough. So he was like, I'm not cutting them out anymore. We're not doing chemo anymore. We're not doing these things. I'm gonna focus on the alternative side.
Yeah.
And he found me, and his friend recommended him, and he came and saw me. We did a lot of reprogramming in terms of theta, in terms of NLP, in terms of past lifetimes as well, and a lot of neuroscience and psychology aspects as well. And, you know, within days, his lesions were starting to heal.
That's amazing.
And he was like, I've switched my whole internal dialogue. I've changed the way that I show up. I changed the way that I speak to myself, the way that I think, the way that I feel, like everything. Yeah. And it's just, he's getting better and better all the time.
I love that. I love hearing these things. And I, you know, through my own experience as a past life regression therapist, you have, it's almost like miracle outcomes, isn't it? Like the amount of shifts that we can see is phenomenal. And I remember, I can't remember the name of the book, and I read it years ago. It would have been in my mid-20s. It's over 10 years ago. Shh. And
sorry, I'm there with you.
And I remember reading about different stories of someone, like he was a past life regression therapist, and he shared some case studies. And it blew my mind, because there was one particular one that stood out that said that they had come to him with a really sore neck. He couldn't figure out why, you know, he was having a sore neck in this lifetime. There was nothing, there was no injury, nothing like that. They did the past life regression, and he'd been hung in a past life.
Yep.
Broke the neck.
Yep.
Come into this life with cell memory. And we take that through. And there was so many more of these, you know, there was so many similar things that we bring through from past lives, that it's almost like you can't not believe it, you know, like you hear about these things that people bring through. But then also when you go quantum and you realize that there's no linear time beyond this plane that we're in, you know, we talk about the, you know, the quantum field, we talk about parallel lives essentially in all time. Let's go there. What's your perspective on that? Like, do you play in sort of the quantum space? Do you play in the, what does that look like for you?
This is why a lot of people don't like me. A lot of people, I'm on, I think the Canon's hit list for QHHT people. I am very unwelcome in a lot of spaces because I do kind of have a Frankenstein belief process. So I take bits and pieces from different things and I structure it together. And that's the best way that makes sense to me. And so for me, and also through channeling, right, I've learnt a lot in that space about time and how things interact. And so I don't believe time is linear. I know that that's kind of it's becoming more common of a concept. But yeah, I have had people see, I think that's the thing too, is I talk a lot about timeline exploration and not just past lives, because people have regression sessions with me. They don't necessarily go to the past.
No, I've had people go well into the future.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And it's a crazy concept to be like, oh, you know, I'm on a stage doing this and this is happening. but I've seen it happen. And I've seen that, you know, they've needed to have these regression sessions almost to plant the seed.
Yeah.
And to direct their pathway moving forward to get to that spot. And they end up fulfilling their own visions because that's what's been the catalyst. And yeah, it's a really crazy thing. And, you know, there's also other aspects in terms of, I do a lot of channeling work with spirit teams.
Yeah.
And I have had a lot of insight into spirit teams, spirit guides, a lot of people call them. They have a real funny thing about that word. So I refer to them as teams because they don't feel like they do guide us. They feel like they support.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And it's very, very different thing.
Yeah.
And my main team member, Sari, she is someone that I had shared a lifetime with in the past. And so it comes back down to, you know, they all come from somewhere. And Sari was actually my sister in a past life who raised me after our parents died. And so it's only natural that as a spirit team member, she has a very nurturing, mothering sort of nature.
Presence. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always very interesting. And I found that in other people, you know, that I've spoken to, there are aspects of either friends or family members who are currently in their lives, but are also somewhat part of their team. And you go, well, how is that possible? They're not dead.
Yeah.
You know? But it's the soul isn't confined to the restrictions that a human body is.
Absolutely.
It can be in more than one place at a time. This is where we hear about shamans and gurus when we talk about soul retrieval and things like that. It's bringing in these pieces of you that are no longer being used to enhance the energy that you have.
Wow, I love that. When I did my past life regression therapy training, and because I did it one-on-one with a facilitator. I'm like, I don't want to learn in a group. I want to just teach me all, you know. And so I did that, and it was really amazing because I sat down in the chair to have my past life regression done on me, and she mentioned timeline. Couldn't see a line. There was no line. However, there was the symbol of the flower of life. And I now, if you can see the video version of this, I have the tattoo on my arm. And what it represents, that's the symbol that I saw in a 3D aspect, that everything was intertwined. There was no linear time. It was everything that, you know, created this webbing, essentially. So all of our lives intertwined together. All of the experiences and the people that were involved, like our soul team, our soul pods, you know, the people that we were connected to, it wasn't just a line. It all just like worked in beautifully together. And that's the way like my pea-sized brain could like, you know, interpret that.
Yeah.
You know, because we've landed on a planet of, you know, polarity. We've landed on a planet that, you know, we live by space and time. However, beyond this plane of existence, it's not like that. It's not linear, you know, it's really hard sometimes for us to comprehend that, to break that down and go, well, if it doesn't mean going from A to B, if it doesn't mean, you know, past, present, future, how can that be?
Yeah.
You know, is there any explanation from that, either from a neuroscience perspective on this, or a spiritual, or just an Elle perspective on this? I'll take any of them.
Psychology and neuroscience, not so much.
Yeah.
It's still a new concept for them. They are still stuck in ancient times.
Newtonian science.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is where I do struggle a lot. I have to balance between the science and the spiritual side. Sometimes I lean more to one side and I have to get a tug and, you know, correct course. But it can be a little bit of I guess it's anyone's guess.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I did have a colleague tell me once, she said she thought about it as if we were looking through virtual reality goggles.
Oh, I love that.
And so she described it as this was you know, we look through goggles, we see virtual reality. We know it's coded. We know it's not really there, but it looks real and it feels real. It seems like it's happening. We in her interpretation was, we are wearing these goggles now.
Yeah.
And everything that's in existence is an illusion of kinds. But it looks so good and feels so good that we forget that it's an illusion. We forget there's coding. We forget that it's all wrapped in together, and we have more control than what we realize. And this was such an interesting concept to me, because I was like, wow, okay, if we take this and put it into practice, what happens? And so, you know, the researcher in me kind of gets out, and we go, let's try this. And there were a lot of things that were shown through that exploration. And I went, yeah, okay, there's lots of different ways that we are all connected, but it's all coding. It's like, for example, let's say I've created this reality. So that means I've created you.
Oh, yeah.
And so
well done. Congratulations. Good job. Gold start.
It's incredible. It's incredible. But it's like, okay, well, if I've created you, let's say we have a great relationship, and, you know, we experience a lot of growth from this and a lot of expansion. Let's say we have a really terrible relationship. And it's like, why am I blaming you for something that I've created? I need to take back my power then, you know,
very cool self-responsibility.
It's that whole like, oh, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, does it still make a sound?
The answer is no. Yeah.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
It's if I'm not here, you're not here.
Exactly, because by virtue of sound, to hear something, you need to have sound. So if it's not heard, there's no sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it comes back into that coding complex of like, well, if I've coded you to be here at this point in time, if I'm not here, it means you're not here. So it's like
brain explosion. So do you feel that we're living in a simulation? Like when you talk about coding, are you talking like simulation? Somewhat.
In theory.
Yeah.
In theory. Whether it's a belief that I hold or not, I'm still undivided on. It's something that is a working theory.
And where's science at with this?
The opposite direction.
That it's not?
Well, there are some avenues of science that point towards this, and they are doing research on it. They are doing different experiments. But there is also science that is not. So it's kind of a bit of a civil war. With a lot of different science avenues. If you want to look at physics or theory or, you know, whatever, it's there's opposing forces.
Do you ever find that you get frustrated with science? Do you ever feel as because like you started off in the very, I guess, like you said, you started very young with this stuff. It's very spiritual based. It's very esoteric.
Yes.
And when science doesn't have the capacity to hold esoterics yet, maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. But science is the masculine of the feminine spirituality. I guess that's sort of the way I can conceptualize this, that we've got yin and yang. Do you just want to get mad at science and be like, fucking catch up, man? Like, we know this stuff to be true, and just because we can't find like tangible proof for things doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just haven't found the way in which we can prove this yet.
Yes. Yes, I do get frustrated. You know what? Honestly, this is the first podcast I've really opened up about science.
Oh, I love that.
I've never, I've never really spoken about this stuff publicly before. I've always led towards the spiritual side because that is what, I guess that's what the audience follows more. Well, the markets that I'm aiming for. So, you know, coming into the talks of, you know, even going into my PhD and things like that before, I've never spoken about this openly.
It's so funny how we talk about people coming out of spiritual closets, but now we're talking about people coming out of science closets that have been in the spiritual space. This is the first time I've had this type of conversation to be like, I'm very spiritual, but don't tell anyone. Like, I'm scientific as well. Like, I love this.
It's real, and it's like that. It's like that, especially, you know, in my space, in studying in university, things like that before. You don't want to hint too much. Like, you don't go in wearing your crystals. Like, you've got to be really reserved. And
where does the, I guess, people in the space of neuroscience, academia, through universities stand with people that want to bridge the gap between science and spirituality? Like, what happens if you did wear crystals into the classroom of neuroscientists.
They don't take you seriously. Right. In my experience, they don't take you seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find many people are like underground spiritual? Do you get in there and be like, what do you know? What do you know?
100%. Yes. There are quite a few people. There are actually, you know what? There are quite a few people I know in this industry of spirituality, of coaching, of psychics, mediums, channelers, Reiki masters, that are all kind of going, yeah, I need to look at the psychology in this. I need to look at the neuroscience. I need to actually understand a bit more. It's like they're stepping into that evolution of their human where they are wanting to bring both sides in.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it happen a lot. A lot of coaches are becoming psychologists. A lot of psychologists are becoming coaches.
Yes, back the other way. Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're like, hey, we've learned what we need to know. We're going to swap sides now.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine and he studied like psychology, all of the brain stuff, really. He did his PhD in perception.
Mm-hmm.
And then through 2020 and all of the spicy flu stuff that came about, he had a voice and very opposition to the academics, basically got shunned from what he was doing. He was like, fuck it, I'm becoming a coach. I'm going to teach through this avenue, and doing amazing things from it. But I love, like, we would sit there for hours and have conversations because the science of things that turns me on. Like, I'm curious about that. Like, I love, and I've always played in the woo-woo space, love spirituality, love all of the crystals and the cards and all of the things, right? But then there's a part of me that's going, oh yeah, there's science to this. And then we had like the rise of Joe Dispenza,
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about Dr. Joe for you.
Look, I think he does good work.
Yeah.
But I think what he bases himself on can be a little bit questionable. He calls himself a doctor and presents these findings as a neuroscientist.
Yes.
But he is a doctor of chiropractic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what he does is he hires neuroscientists and people to back it up and do this work for him. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if there's a little bit of judgment in me, and I can.
You don't say.
Yeah, in me with that, because I feel like you're a little bit taking credit there for a lot of other people's work here.
Yep.
But I don't dismiss what he says. I don't dismiss what his results are, and I think he does do a lot of really powerful work.
Yeah.
In collaboration.
Yes.
With a lot of the neuroscientists that he works with.
I've read his books, listened to audiobooks, watched him a lot on Gaia and stuff. And he does talk about his team, team and I at events. And I know a lot of people that have been to his events. He does have incredible results. But I think underlying with all of that is what's possible. Yeah. Wherever you get it from. Like, yes, if you want to call yourself a doctor, go through the process to do your doctorate, right? So equals 1 + 1 = 2, right?
Yes.
So and there are a lot of people, I guess, in the industry that don't have pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Like, it's really interesting, and this is more in the spiritual and personal development space now. I'm not talking about the science space. But I feel as though there's a lot of people sort of entering into personal development where it is an unregulated industry, where anyone can say what they want to say, get away essentially with what they want to say. Sure, they might be able to get insurance. They might be able to get professional indemnity or whatever. But there's a lot of fluff out there as well.
Yes.
Tell us about that. What does that look like from your perspective? Like, being obviously in the space for so long, also being in the scientific space, seeing all these people coming through like, oh, I did a weekend course in hypnotherapy or hypnosis. Don't even get me started on the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Tell me about that vision from you. This episode of the Enlightened podcast is proudly sponsored by the Sanctuary of Self, your portal to self-discovery and creating a sanctuary within. At the Sanctuary of Self, our philosophy is rooted in the belief that true transformation begins with knowing yourself deeply. Here you will find my signature programs. It's the home of all of my Tantra offerings, including in-person sessions in Brisbane, workshops and trainings all around Australia. I invite you to start with the Flourish Collective membership, a nurturing sanctuary for personal growth and transformation. This membership offers a greenhouse of resources, including workbooks, meditations, and soulful self-paced practices designed to help you cultivate alignment, purpose, and self-love. At only $44 per month with no lock-in contract, you can access an abundance of resources, videos, ebooks, meditations, and workshops with new content added monthly. Head to sanctuaryofself.love for all the juicy details.
I get attacked a lot on my opinions on this. Yeah.
Don't
because
worry, no one can hurt you here. You're in a safe space.
Don't come for me in the comments. Look, I 100% agree. I feel like this is an unregulated industry. And while there is beauty in passed down rituals, people that have lived the path, lived experience, right? There is also a lot of misdirection and manipulation.
Hugely.
And I feel like the spiritual industry has become a little bit of a casino environment.
Oh, I love that.
Where you're putting $10 in the machine going like, I just need a little win. I just need something. And, the coach is giving you a little something.
Yeah.
But never enough to be where he is at.
Yes.
Or she is at, where they are at.
Yes.
And, but invest another $20,000 in this program and I will show you the way, child.
Yes.
And you're no better off than when you started.
Absolutely. I call it the subscription model of the pharmaceutical industry for healing.
Yes.
It's no different from saying take this pill and then take this pill because of the symptoms of that pill.
And it's the manipulation of it too, because it's like, well, you've already invested this much.
Yeah,
you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to give up now.
You're on the edge of a breakthrough.
Absolutely. And this is where NLP and things like that can come into a marketing aspect and become very dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen it, and I get to a point where because I went down the path. So I started clinical hypnotherapy, strategic psychotherapy, diploma trained in that. And then it was like, oh, you'll need NLP with that. I'm like, great. I love that. NLP was then like my life coaching certification all wrapped up in that, doing masters in that. That was all well and good. Then it was like, I need to expand into more of the energy stuff. So I've like, collected things along the way. Then I'm like, no, we're not done past life regression therapy, please and thanks. Then it's more been in the tantric space to bring all of the mind stuff. There was so much mind stuff happening that I was like, let's bring it into the body.
Yeah.
And I love that I've been multidimensional in all of these things, and it's been an evolution for me. And I have moved away from the term life coach and associating essentially fully in the coaching industry.
Yeah.
Because I guess once you've been in it for quite some time, I always say, remember 10 years ago, everyone was a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Right. Then everyone became life coaches. Now it's like breathwork facilitators. It's trending.
Yeah.
Right. And because it's such an unregulated industry, I hate seeing the ads that pop up on Facebook, become a life coach for $7.
Doesn't it just make you want to vomit?
It actually does. It gives me the ick.
Yeah.
If I found out that I was going to a life coach to talk about deepest, darkest stuff and that they'd got a certificate for $7 from doing a weekend course, I would be fucking fuming.
Right.
But the people are great at marketing. We now have AI to support marketing. People are doing their pretty things up on Canva, marketing themselves really well.
Yeah.
Showing up on TikTok, getting all of these followers, buying followers on Instagram if they need to. It's just giving me the ick.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's you and I have been in the industry for quite some time. And sure, we might sound a little bit judgy right now, but I think also I like to call things out. Yes. I like to call things out as real because you're dealing with people's psyches here. You're dealing with people's trauma. I guess the new trend is trauma informed. What have you
Yeah.
That's another one.
That's another $7 certificate. It is really frustrating and it can be really quite dangerous.
Yeah.
And I've had clients come from practitioners with those certifications and with that trauma instilled from those sessions.
Yeah.
And I'm having to undo the bullshit that they've created. And so I think that's why I do have judgment on it. And look, I'm not above admitting that I have judgment. I tell people all the time, I am not a perfect therapist. I make mistakes. I feel judgmental. I get lonely. You mean
to tell me you're human?
I am human.
What? No.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is a lot of people go into this space and they have a breakthrough with someone and they put them up on a pedestal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always say, like, don't look at me as if I'm some kind of guru, because I'm not. And I always speak into the fact that I'm human, the fact that, like, I will always have challenges.
Yeah.
You and I being in this space, and other practitioners and therapists, we have the tools to support ourselves, which is what we teach other people. But it does not make us exempt from the shit show that is, like, the cosmic joke that is life.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I saw this literally like a couple of days ago with a client. I was like, you need to assert your boundaries here. Like, you need to honor yourself. And then I went home and was like, fuck, I'm not honoring myself. And I've just wiped off my boundary in something. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, that's called me out too. Like,
do you find that you'll have a client session and everything that you're saying to them, you're like, I'm actually talking to myself?
Sometimes, sometimes.
I had that recently. I can't even remember what the topic was. It was with a client the other day, and I was talking about, I'm like, and noted for self. Go back and revisit that part of you, you know, because we are human. You know, just because we have this different understanding to people doesn't make us exempt from what life has to throw at us.
100%.
Which and that's one thing, like, especially when I'm interviewing people on the podcast, like, and I'd love to ask you this question, like, what's something that you're currently working through? Like, let's get you down off the pedestal that people might be listening to going, oh, wow, she's amazing. Look at her doing all this stuff. Tell us something that's real for you at the moment.
Yeah, so I've literally just come out the back end of cutting my father out of my life.
Ooh.
I lost my mother when I was a child. And so I was holding on to any parent I had left, ignoring all of the toxicity. And I've also come out the back end of that and then seen how I have been dismissed and unheard from certain friends in my world as well, because especially growing up with psychic and mediumship abilities, people want to be around you for the magic.
Yes.
Right? They're like, tell me what they're saying. Tell me all the things, you know, connect me, do all the things.
Yeah.
But then when the insights don't match the narrative that they want, you are public enemy number one. And you are rejected. You are dismissed. You are cut off because you're being, quote unquote, unsupportive. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not enabling your cycles here.
Yeah.
But because I'm not in agreement with you, I'm the mean girl. I'm the bad person.
Yeah.
And so I had gone through a lot of my teenage life and early adult life building walls up and not letting people get too close. I didn't have a big friendship group. And I started to take those walls down and I started to let people in. And I saw how quickly this cycle was repeating.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I'm being used and I'm being dismissed if I don't agree or if I, you know, challenge the narrative of their story. And so I'm like, okay, this is a lesson in boundaries. It's a lesson in discernment, not to put the walls back up, but to be more cautious and more self-honoring in how I show up in these relationships. So it's been a big journey for me in that sense.
Yeah, I found that too. Like, especially when you've got something, you know, like psychic medium abilities, people always want something. And generally it's what they can get out of it, because I've got quite a few friends close to me that are incredibly, like, psychic and medium. And people always want something that's outside of themselves that they feel that they can't tap into. They want answers because, you know, especially let's talk about mediumship for a minute. Mediumship is being able to connect with past loved ones or the other side, essentially. So the spirit realm. And so for a lot of people have unresolved stuff around, like, family and friends that have passed away.
Yeah.
They want answers. They want to know that they're around. They want to know that they're okay, because I truly feel in the Western world and in our current society, our relationship with life and death is quite skewed.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
When you think about coming into the world and you're giving birth, right? You have a baby shower. You have all these beautiful experiences that are like, oh, welcome the new life, the new baby, all the love. And then when someone dies, they're like, oh, this is so morbid and I never want to talk about it again.
Yeah. Or we just dance around the topic, or we don't even know, like, our relationship with grief around death. No one teaches you how to grieve.
No.
No one gives you a hand, but it's like pleasure. It's the same as pleasure.
Yeah.
No one talks about it.
Yeah.
It's so taboo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same as money.
Yeah.
Right? No one knows about your grief life, your sex life, or your wealth
finances,
life, your
yeah.
finances. Exactly that. And these are the things that we need to talk about. These are the things that should be wide open conversations in the family, in like the skewed education system that we currently exist in. Like there's just not enough there. And what I find is that if you have the ability to connect with past loved ones, because people have got unresolved stuff, because they've got what we call unfinished business, you are the key. Like you are the bridge between worlds. People just want to have that feeling of knowing that everything's okay, so that their grief isn't, I guess, so harsh.
Yes, 100%. They want to know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
They want to know that their loved one is still around. They want to know that it's not the end when they die, because that is the true fear under it. It's not being without the person. It's understanding what comes next.
Yeah.
And that is terrifying for people.
It is, because it's not spoken about. What's your belief about that? What's your belief of what happens, like birth and dying and spirit, soul, continuation? What's your perspective?
My understanding from, I guess, working with Sari, my spirit team for many years, was that when someone comes into a human existence, we come in with what we call a spiritual cosmic shopping list. And you have a bunch of lessons or experiences that you want to have being human, right? And it might take you one lifetime, or it might take you 1,000 lifetimes to tick everything off your list. But once you tick everything off, you then have a choice. And it's like, do you want to start a new list, or do you want to help someone that you love with theirs? And this is how spirit team members come to be.
Yeah.
And from my understanding of it is they have one shot, one application, and it has to be a mutual agreement between them and the soul that they want to assist. And so when they come through that, from a sense of like, we're leaving this human life, we've ticked everything off our list, we have a choice. Our soul, again, is not restricted the way that our human body is. So they leave behind imprints. And it's like they can come back to this imprint with that soul when needed. So it's almost like an anchor or a checkpoint, or a save point in a game that you're coming back to when you need to. And that could be for whatever reason. Maybe you're a mother who has passed and your daughter is getting married. And your daughter's sitting there on her wedding day going, I really wish my mother was here. That call then sends a signal to that imprint, and that part of that mother's soul comes back.
Oh, I love that.
And so that's where we feel these connections. And I feel like we do have a bit of a review process when we pass of, ticking, did we tick everything off the list?
Yeah.
What did we learn? What did we gain? What did we lose? And, this, from Sari's understanding of time, she says it takes around 3 to 7 human years. And so during that time when someone passes, we'll often feel like they're still around.
Yes.
We'll still see signs.
Yes.
We'll still feel like really close to them. But then kind of that 7-year point, we kind of feel like they're not around anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, where did they go? Like, are they gone? Did they move on? And this is like, they've finished the review process and they've started the pre-planning for their next life if they've not come into it already. And so it can feel like we go through grief all over again.
Yeah.
And I went through that with my mother. Yeah. Right? Because, being psychic and being medium, I was like, where the fuck is she?
Yeah, get back in here,
I was like, where did you go?
First of all, you left me, and now you left me again.
Yeah. And it was really hard. And I know that, who's that famous? Tyler Henry, famous psychic, famous medium. He struggled a lot connecting to his own family. Yeah. And this is the barrier that we face, like it took me years, and I mean years, to connect with my mom. And when I finally did connect with my mom, she was fucking out of here. And I was like, what the fuck?
Thanks, Mom.
And so, when she finally, moved on, and I was like, well, I just got here. Like we just connected again. Like, what is happening? And I went through grief all over again. And I had to, that's when I got let in on that information about the imprints. And this is why she comes back at these moments and when she's needed.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. What's your perspective on people that self-check out of life?
This is tough because the people that I've spoken to on the other side that have committed suicide, I'm not going to dance around the word. There is always regret. And it's not regret for what they've done, but it's regret for the pain they've caused.
Yeah, wow.
Because it's everyone that they're leaving behind. And it's hard for them because they feel a sense of obligation to stay longer in that review process, to be more accessible to those that they've left behind. But there is a huge wave of forgiveness once they get there, because when we get to the other side, there's no moralities, there's no ethics, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
And so there's no punishment for anything that you've done. There's no praise for anything that you've done. It's just choices.
Yeah.
And that's the point of having free will in the first place.
Yeah.
So when they get to the other side, a lot of people worry, especially if they are religious from a Catholic perspective or Christianity or anything like that. They worry. They worry that their loved one is, doomed.
Off to hell we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's no right or wrong. And I think, our concepts of right and wrong are very conditioned.
It's all subjective.
Absolutely.
It's completely subjective. I've been listening to the audiobook of Conversations with God. And it talks in there about how Hitler went to heaven. And there's a whole chapter on Hitler went to heaven. And I love it because for me that resonates, because there is no heaven and hell as such. Yeah. If anything, Earth School is the hell part.
Yeah, we create it for ourselves.
Exactly that. And I love that because working on my relationship with God, as opposed to just referring to universe, created, divine. I've been really, because I grew up Catholic and grew up in that space. I was an altar server at church, back in the olden days. And then got to a point where I was like, actually, this is not for me, and then came witchcraft and spirituality and the evolution of that.
The rebellious side. Yeah.
The evolution of the good Catholic schoolgirl. Title of my next book.
Love it.
But through going through that process, I found such ick with the word God.
Yeah, a
not
lot of people
the sense of God. It was the word God. And it was only recently, and I was talking to someone else about this on a different episode of the podcast, that I had to really sit and rewrite my word of God. That means the same thing that I was feeling, but I just had to get past my own ick with that. And so I started listening to Conversations with God, changed my life, really found a soft spot for it. And now I can talk about it with probably there's 5% of ick still sitting there where I'm like, you said it out loud, and that's my journey at the moment. But listening to the book Conversations with God and really absorbing it, and just how beautiful the teachings are, that it's basically drumming in the same thing over and over again. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with you. There's actually no right or wrong. Just live your life. Live.
We're meant to follow what feels good for us.
Yeah.
Which comes back to, you wanting to bring everything that you had from the mind into the body.
Yes.
Because we are so disconnected.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people, when we think of self-care, a lot of people will swing one of two ways, right? They will go physical or mental.
Yes.
They will never cross paths.
Yeah.
And emotional, it's not even thought about.
No, don't even.
It's something where we are a bit disconnected, and that trigger around God is very common for 99% of people. And it is for various different reasons, whether they agree with religious viewpoints or whether they disagree. And it's really interesting to watch it play out in different people. But I mean, if you really think about, the concepts of right and wrong from a societal standpoint, if you go and murder someone, you're a monster.
Yeah.
But if you murder someone to save someone else, you're a hero.
Yeah, it's all subjective, isn't it?
Exactly.
And they talk about, have you read Conversations with God? Or
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And it, like, I've told so many people about it. It was like, I sat back and I'm like, I'm telling people about a God book. Like, where have I landed with this? Like, it's really cool. And there's so much in there that just really just like confirms a lot of stuff that I already knew and felt, but it's already like, okay, well, if this is coming through from a guy channeling, you know, whatever God or his version of God is saying, and I can get on board with that, I would rather that than fight my own mind about something.
Exactly.
You know, because it's peaceful in there. It's really peaceful in my own mind when I sit with that and be like, yeah, that's my connection to literally all things. I used to think, like, I was conditioned to believe it was a man in the sky.
Yeah.
That was judging me, that like, the indoctrination of religion in so many people, you know, our age, older, we're definitely seeing like, you know, a decline in people, you know, stepping through religion. Would you agree? Disagree? There's that face. Let's go there.
My eldest son, he goes to a Catholic school, and he will come home and be like, you know, someone said something, oh, they need Jesus, and I'm going, what's your interpretation?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not picking on you. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting because a lot of younger people are still following the patterns that they are being conditioned to, but they also have like a little unique flair.
Yeah, I love that.
Of like, oh, but, you know, I believe in heaven and hell, but I also believe in reincarnation. And I'm like, but that's contradictory.
It is to their rule book. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm like, how does that work in your mind? How does that work in your belief system? And it's interesting. I think, you know, they are coming to their own almost blending. But I think a lot of the blending of, you know, cultural religion and their aspects comes from peer pressure.
Yes. Or family pressure, societal pressure. Like, you're born into it. Like, I didn't get a choice to be baptized. Like, I didn't get a choice whether I went to church or not. Yeah. And so from the very young years, because I was born in Melbourne, in Victoria, and I still remember going to the church there. And like, I moved up here when I was 5. And so there's some very early memories like deep in there. And I always thought the priest that was talking about all this stuff was God. Yeah. That was my visualization. When I thought of God, I thought of Father Crawford was his name. Yeah. And he had like this sort of like deep beaming voice. I'm like, oh, that must be God.
That must be him. That's the guy.
Because he's talking about the God stuff, right? And so undoing that, unraveling it. And then I went a few years ago, I danced in the, I wanted to get back into the God thing. And I was like, I don't agree with the masculine side of what God is portrayed as. What if it's female? Like, what if we want to put something to it? And then I'm like, what if there's a mother God and father God? Like, I've danced in sort of different views and just deciding where I want to land with it. And I'm like, the God thing's too hard. Let's just go universe and creator and divine. That feels good with me. Now it's changed. And then when I was going through all this God stuff, you know, in the last couple of months, I'm like, God is dog backwards. My dog has unconditional love. It's my dog. Always wants the best of me. I'm like, fuck, that's a cosmic joke, isn't it? Like, all you have to do is look at a dog and you're like, hey, it's God backwards. 100%.
I often joke and say that I love my dogs more than my children.
Self kids. I know a good therapist.
right. But yeah, it's they're just such beautiful creatures. And it's the irony is not lost.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel as though like God, spirituality is all subjective. Like, take what you want from anywhere, but because you have that right to decide what spirituality is for you, that gives the next person the right for them to decide what that is as well.
Exactly. And if we go back to that concept of, you know, we're living in the illusion and it's all coding, whatever you decide God is whatever you will create.
Exactly, because we are shaped by what our beliefs are. Like, our perception of things is based on the proof that we're constantly looking for, that our beautiful little subconscious mind and our RAS, our reticular activating system, is storing as like, this is truth, this is proof. You've got a belief about something, you've got a curiosity about something, here's the things that are going to continue to sustain that. So whatever we believe is what we experience.
Absolutely.
And that's the fun part of changing your beliefs, going, well, hang on a second. And I think this is where what we were saying at the start about the virtual reality, it's like, what if we change the program? What if we play in this space?
Yeah.
What if we just shifted it going, what if it doesn't have to be like this?
Yeah.
What if we just play in a different space? Like, is that something that you've played in? Like, I'd love to hear a story.
Yeah.
Tell me a story. Tell me a story about this.
There's a few people that we've worked through, belief systems in this way and kind of restructured the way things are. And I always tell them, like, we do little exercises because if we think of it like virtual reality, if we think of it like a game has to be fun. So we play games.
Yes.
And we make it fun. And then our spirit team or the universe or God or ourselves in whatever form, it plays back.
Yes.
And so this is where I tell people you've got to build your trust receipts. You've got to get your receipts because your receipts will affirm your beliefs. And so if you play the game and you get the receipt, you're just solidifying that belief system. You're solidifying that reality. So I mean, I had one client. We had a kind of like a game of, where's Wally or like, where's Waldo, depending where you are in the world. And it was like, cool, I'm gonna look for like red shoes. And it was something that she's like, I don't see like, a lot of people on my day-to-day with red shoes. And she's like, when I see the red shoes, that's the sign. Like telling the universe out loud, speaking it into existence. When I see red shoes, this is the trust receipt that I am creating what I'm seeing, right? She went for a walk around Brisbane City and she saw various different shades of red. Orange, pink, red. And she's gone, I don't think that's quite it. I don't think that's quite it. I don't think that's quite it. And then when she's telling herself, she's like, oh, I don't think that's quite red enough. She'd see another one that was brighter. That was redder.
Almost there. We're almost there. Yep.
And so it was just literally like, she's like, I can't ignore it when, it shows up, 3 by 3 by 3. And I went, yeah. So do you have enough receipts yet to play the game? Like, do we have enough proof? And so she, the next week she tried something different and she went with like a white bucket hat. And I was like, interesting for adults. You're not going to really see that. Just, walking to the office. And she did.
Wow.
She did. And so it's bringing things into that RAF system, bringing it into the awareness and realizing that we have more control than what we think.
Because on the other hand, if we're not conscious in creating something, what we'll call the positive, that people can get on board with positive and negative, we're going to reinforce the negative perspectives. If we hold the negative perspectives, we're going to find proof for that because that's what we're coded to look for.
Yes.
And so this is where it takes stepping outside of like your natural sort of process of how the mind goes, going, I'm going to do this differently. And I saw this thing on TikTok the other day. I loved it. Someone was like overly excited sharing this experience. She's like, I've decided to do something whimsical every day.
Yeah.
And now that I'm doing something whimsical, I'm having like all of these incredible experiences. And I love the word whimsical. And like the concept of whimsical, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's cool. Like that is cool. Like go and do whimsical shit.
Yeah.
Like do things that like will like test, almost like find the receipts. But if you don't get the receipts that you thought were exact, that you tried to control the version of receipts, what is showing up for you? Is it sort of like, I've done the same thing. It's like a little bit off center. And then I check in with myself going, is that because I'm choosing like subconsciously to be tested to not believe in this because I want to prove myself wrong because I'm believing that I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Or is it I'm just not doing it properly? Am I just not aligned? Am I just not there yet? Is this all fucking bullshit? Am I just in psychosis today?
Yeah. And that's the problem a lot of people face, right? Is they're like, my internal voice and, it's like your conscious, your subconscious are at war with each other. And, it's like, how are you meant to collect any receipts if you're in a civil war?
Exactly.
You've got to come back down to the foundations of learning to rehabilitate fear.
Yes.
Because fear is what's going to want to prove you wrong.
Every time, because fear is survival. We landed on this planet. Everything we do, apart from having a spiritual experience, from a biological perspective, we're here to survive.
Yeah.
We're just here to live.
Yeah.
We're just here to like not die. So we're going to do everything to make sure we don't die. And fear is the driving force behind our survival.
Yeah.
And we've coded right and wrong, good as bad, positive, negative, safe and unsafe.
Yeah.
I will live or I will die. You know, so if we're coded to believe that things are negative or in turn unsafe, our nervous system gets on board and goes, nope, we're not doing that here.
Yeah.
Just, you know, fight or flight. And that's when we're like so caught up in a response to get away from what feels scary or uncomfortable, as opposed to going, well, hang on a second, what is safety?
Yeah.
Where can I land that even though it's uncertain, or maybe it's even been wrong in the past before, how can I, you know, find that sense of safety in it? How can I land in it that just feels okay, and build proof in that to sustain that new belief?
Yeah. And a lot of us find ourselves in a very unbalanced masculine energy because we turn towards that fear and that aggression because we are trying to protect ourselves.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, like people look at masculine and feminine energy very
rigidly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, they look at the masculine as being action, they look at the feminine as being receiving. And yes, that is true, but there are also two sides to each.
Absolutely.
There is the balance and the unbalanced. And you know, people, you know, we hear so much about society of being, you know, the unbalanced masculine.
Yes.
Of, you know, the aggression and the narcissistic and all of the toxic masculinity. But we don't hear about the feminine. And the feminine operates from fear as well.
Absolutely. Toxic femininity. Absolutely.
But it comes from fear of scarcity.
Of course it does. Yeah.
And so it comes from a place of bitterness. And it's like, why is it working out for them? It's not working out for me. Why is, you know, all these things? We get comparison, we get envy, we get all these things that come into play. But we don't look at the balanced side of masculine that provides that safety for our feminine to step into, our balanced feminine to step into and really own and receive and feel comfortable and feel safe to explore the whimsical, to explore the science, to explore the other sides of things. And, you know, don't get me wrong, like a toxic masculine energy can save your life.
Absolutely.
It can save your life.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But is it serving you in that moment?
Yeah.
Is that energy what is really best to harness in that interaction?
Yeah. And because if you're existing in, you know, one and one only the majority of the time, that's where you get that imbalance.
Yeah.
You know, that's where we see a lot of women that have like really, sometimes by no choice of their own, had to step into their masculinity. I know that I've been very deeply my masculine at times.
Yep.
You know, before I was with my partner, or even when he, you know, because he lives interstate, there's times that I have to be the man of the house because I'm also the woman of the house and I'm the only one running the show. Like when he's not here, I get out there and mow the lawns and I check the oil in my car. And I'm like, no, that's a boy's job, but there is no boy here to do it.
Yep.
You know, and there's structure, you know, structure to having a household. You know, like I am the captain of the ship. You know what I mean? If the captain goes down, the whole ship goes down.
Yeah.
You know, so there has to be structure in place. The same as in business. Like I support a lot of people through, you know, the balance of like the energetics of business. Like that's one of my areas of genius, is looking at someone's business going, okay, you're really in your feminine with this, which is amazing. You've got great creativity. You're delivering amazing. Like you can show up in that. But show me the structure.
Yeah.
Show me, you know,
where are you taking action?
Exactly, the action, like that you have to have the balance in all things. And this is also why I love Tantra, because there's so much about yin and yang, masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
That we have all of that within inside ourselves. And then we have that in, you know, our divine union with our partner, if we're in partnership.
Yeah.
If not, that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's understanding that within ourselves, how we operate, to go, I have to be in my masculine right now because shit needs to get done. And I need to be in my feminine as well because I need to just chill and flow right now.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And, you know, like that was a big thing for me growing up with these abilities, was like I was operating from a masculine standpoint of protection and fear.
Yes.
It was, I wasn't letting people get close. I was, you know, putting up walls and, you know, not having connection because I was terrified
Yeah.
of what people would say, do, whether they were at risk. I mean, there were quite a lot of times in my teenage years where I was attacked by things
Wow.
in the other realms.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't know how to harness what I was doing. I didn't know how to
Wide
do
open
things.
channel and be like, come on, come all, we're having a party in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, it wouldn't always have a happy ending.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm like, well, if I keep people away from me, I'm protecting them.
Totally.
And so, you know, and it all comes back down to, you know, does that serve you here? Does it serve you now? And it doesn't. And I have had to learn to step into more of a balanced masculine and more of a balanced feminine. And, you know, it's funny, you brought up Hitler in the Conversations with God. And, you know, in a past lifetime, I worked in a concentration camp.
Wow.
And I was, you know, sending people off to the gas chambers.
Wow.
And it was a really horrifying experience. But also, I think it goes to show where, you know, our sense of ethics and everything is conditioned. And I'm never, ever condoning the slaughter of thousands of people. But I'm saying when we get to the other side, it's not that there was a punishment for that. There was enough punishment in my lifetime for the role that I played in that lifetime. Whereas in this lifetime, I'm not suffering the consequences of my actions from that lifetime, but I did hold on to the fear and the aggression.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was using to try and protect myself. And so it was coming back into realizing, well, I don't need that anymore. I'm not fighting for my life. I'm not following orders. I'm not having to you know, be where I was in this lifetime. And so, you know, it all interacts. It all comes into
it does all that
each
webbing.
other.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I love that they talk about in the book around this was almost the, you know, when we talk about the, you know, soul contracts, or like you said, like coming in with the cosmic shopping list, love that. The people involved in that came in, and that was part of their lessons, but also as part of a collective lesson that so many people had to go through this horrible experience to teach things throughout history.
Yeah.
Like to give people a sense of like, a sense of our version of right and wrong, you know, what to do, what not to do, you know, and it talks so much about history in the book and all that kind of stuff, and the way it's being shaped and almost bastardized to look like it, you know, a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, to teach generations coming through of a bias, you know, so, and I love how the book, it goes so deep into this stuff, but it also, like, the book goes into like pleasure, like men, women, all of these things. Like there's so many parts to it. And I think, you know, whether it's the Conversations with God book, whether it's your own experience, whether it's religion, like whatever it is, discover that for what, like who you are.
Yeah.
You know, like find your thing that you resonate with, so that it gives you a sense of peace on the inside, so that you're not at war, like you said, like with yourself.
Yeah.
Because to be at war within yourself, how fucked up is that for life? Do you want to get to your deathbed at 111 years old and going, well, that was shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, would not recommend. And then you die, and then you go through that reflective point, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, and there's always going to be lessons in life that you can always get to the other side and be like, okay, what is it that I need to become more aware of perhaps in another life to keep ticking those things and crossing the things off the shopping list?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things, like, I love, like, I really resonate with psychedelics and plant medicine.
Yeah.
Like, that blasted me wide open, wide awake. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I can see some things now.
Yeah.
You know, to see things about myself, to see things about life that change the trajectory of my life, not to outhuman myself, but to just awaken me on the inside to be like, okay, I get a certain aspect of myself now.
Yeah.
I understand a certain part of my mission, my soul's mission here, my connection to self, my connection to the other side, and connection to source. Have you had, like, obviously you started very young, like, have you sort of had any, I guess, catalysts that woke you right up in a particular instance?
I can't honestly think of one scenario. there have been a million micro moments that things have clicked in.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of my life is just micro moments.
Yeah, I was saying that to my partner a couple of weeks ago. I had a massive shift, and it wasn't in an ayahuasca ceremony. Like, I didn't have my head in the bucket. It wasn't some grand thing. It was still massive, yet micro, and it just went click, and it was like everything changed. And I was like, it feels weird not doing it in ceremony. Yeah, but and I'm not the type of person that, like, if you're not into plant medicine, don't do plant medicine. Like, simple as that. Works for me, doesn't work for others. Some people have it in breath work. Some people have it watching a sunrise. Some people have it through someone dying or a birth. Like, it can be big moments, but there are, like, let's celebrate the micro moments, because a string of micro moments become macro.
Yeah. And, you know, I have had some experiences with plant medicine, but I've never had the eye-opening experiences that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that is because I have spent a lot of my life so open.
Yes.
That I have all of these micro moments slip in, that it's kind of like, what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm waiting for this big thing to happen, but nothing's happening. Am I doing it wrong? But you know, I work with a lot of veterans, a lot of DVA clients. And I have one client at the moment who is, you know, going through, well, he has lost half of his memories from ECT, electrotherapy, and which is insane that we still do that.
Yeah.
But he also has been on a bit of a ketamine journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, he has had some incredible awakenings through that process because he's learning to connect to himself again.
Yes.
I mean, when you think about things from an army perspective, it's the same as, you know, what I was going through with the Hitler lifetime. You know, we're following orders. We have no sense of self. And so when they kind of come in through a plant medicine door, everything for them, whether it's psychedelics or plant medicine, everything for them is huge because they are feeling what feelings feel like for the first time.
So closed off for so long. Yeah. And these can be, like, psychedelics and plant medicine can be so supportive for some people. Other times, if you're not prepared for what it can open, and it is going to blast you wide open, and during ceremony there is no closing it off and going, okay, I'm done now. Like, you're in. Once you're in, there's a lot to unpack. For some people, not always. And then integration is such a big part of it. And, like, even my partner and I, like, he's very much into support. He supports people in ceremonies, but then also with integration afterwards. And we have both seen the lack of integrative support afterwards.
Yes. And this is where I go on and on about soul therapy, right? Because I go, soul therapy is your integration.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, we're not just going to come into this space and we're going to take you through a past lifetime and give you all this insight and this wisdom and then just bye, best of luck,
catch you later.
Yeah. It's like, that's not how this works. It's like, hey, we're going to do a soul therapy session after this. We're going to take some time to integrate this. We're going to check back with you in a few weeks. We're going to see how you're going. Like, this is important because it's like, hey, it's great to have these great insights, but how do I apply them to my life?
Exactly. Like, it's if you just know the things and you don't do the things that you receive from that, you're going to get stuck.
Absolutely. Because I could have went through that lifetime of, you know, being in the conservation camps and going, okay, I, you know, helped murder a lot of people and I was really aggressive and, you know, didn't have a sense of self. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Then I go out in my life and I'm like, am I an aggressive piece of shit? Or like,
am I being punished?
Yeah.
In my past life? Absolutely.
And it's like, what am I meant to do with that? Am I a terrible person because that's what I did in the past? Am I, losing my mind? Like, what do I do with this information now?
Yeah.
It took me time to integrate that and go, right, okay, how was I showing up? That was the toxic masculine. Why do I need to be shown this now so I don't repeat the same mistakes?
Exactly.
So I don't continue down the toxic masculine road or the unbalanced masculine of protection and not feeling into my body and not trusting myself and not being able to dance between the energies of masculine and feminine when needed and follow orders blindly.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's so interesting. You talked at the start about, I believe it's Brian Weiss's book where I could be wrong. Don't come for me in the comments. Where, you know, he was hung and had the sore neck. Yeah, I had a very similar, I have a scar on my back where I had to have a piece of muscle cut out near my spine.
Wow.
A few years back because I was in an environment where I was repeating the same pattern I was in a past life.
Wow.
And in that lifetime, I had a meat hook go through the back of my spine.
Oof.
And it was so painful and so traumatic. And that's the physical manifestation that was coming up in this lifetime when I was repeating the same patterns.
Wow.
And it's insane.
Yeah. And we do like it might be Brian Weiss' book. I wish I remembered the name of it. But yeah, it talks about like the stuff that we bring into, and they sometimes you know, that can appear as we said before, like pain in the neck, pain in your back or in your spine, ailments. Like dis-ease, you know, there's so many things that was in this book that was like, wow, there's so much more beyond just our human selves and our current reality.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more. And whether you choose to look at it or not, whether you're just like fully in the team science, there is no esoteric, there is no spiritual, cool, go nuts with that. Do you know what I mean? If you want to play in the spiritual where it's like science, it's got, you know, so much to catch up, I'm not going there, cool, playing that. Like
100%. That's what I find a lot of people come to me with questions about past life regression because they're like, well, what does that mean from a science aspect?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we're accessing parts, we're getting you into a different brainwave for starters. We're getting you into the brainwave that unlocks your subconscious, where we store these memories. And this is where we store a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our dreams, a lot of everything that's kind of happening in the background. But it's getting you into that brain state. And then when I take you through that journey, I'm not taking you through, oh, tell me what you can see. I'm like, this is a multi-sensory experience. What can you feel? What can you smell? What can you hear? And it's because sight is not everyone's dominant sense. And so people always tell me like, what if I go in there and I can't see anything? I'm like, don't fucking worry about it.
We're not here to see things.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's such a I guess fear around holding people back from that because they're like, what if I see something I can't unsee? And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like your subconscious, the brainwave that we are getting you into, you have control still. You can get up and you can walk out if you want.
That's what I always say to people before they come in for hypnotherapy. They're like, is it mind control? I'm like, I mean, if I tell you to cluck like a chicken, you can, but you don't have to. And this is where, especially like I've interviewed a fellow hypnotist on here before because he does a lot of stage work. And there's a lot that the entertainment industry has to answer for, essentially, because then you look at like hypnosis as a therapeutic modality, but also we've got people clucking like chickens because they're like made to on a stage. And so I actually interviewed him like quite a while ago and said, talk us through that. You know, and that there's a big difference between it because the stage stuff, like there's certain ways in which audience members are picked out that there is a process that the hypnotist on stage or the entertainer essentially takes them through that they're, you know, that they're, I guess,
more
gullible, same thing. And I've been on stage with one of those like years ago before I was even in this space. I remember, I'll be on stage. Me, I love the stage. And like I was in that state, but I'm doing what they were saying to do because I was on stage doing what they said to do. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going to not do that. Could I have got up and walked away? Absolutely, I could have. But the bright lights were on me. I was in front of everyone. There was cheering. Like there's certain cues that you are given to stay in that space. You know, whereas it's very different in, you know, a hypnotherapy or a past life regression session. And I think that's such a big part of our roles is to really decondition people around what's actually involved. And what I love about being in that theta brainwave, which is the brainwave we get people in when we're going into that state, is the conscious mind takes a hike. Like the conscious mind, the part that argues and says, no, that can't be true because this isn't real, off with the fairies, you know? So sometimes we don't always remember the journey, but when you and I, like when we're speaking into the subconscious mind and we're able to have it talk back to us and give us things, the conscious mind isn't there to be like, well, that's wrong. you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because like this is the common belief, right? Is that the conscious mind doesn't have any say in that space. But I've seen it go the other way. I've seen the conscious mind interact and play through that experience with the subconscious. And it's really interesting to see what people come back with and feel and experience through those sessions. But it's one of those things, like, it's just, yeah, it's so hard to describe. Like, it's such an in-depth thing that we get into that level of susceptibility or trust. And
takes
flow.
a while for some people too. Like, I've had people come in and they're like, oh, I'm really nervous about this. I'm like, that's okay. We don't have to jump straight into it. Like, let's get to know each other. Like, let's get to like unpack a few things consciously. And then when you're ready, we can go there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where this is where I get in trouble with QHHT people. Because I'm trained in a few different modalities of past life regression, and QHHT is one of them. And so if anyone out there is a big Dolores Cannon fan, please avert your eyes. I get in trouble a lot because I don't follow their program. They believe that your subconscious will take you to whatever timeline is meant for you, and we've gone to specific timelines for reasons in sessions. You know, if someone has had a belief system that was created and they kind of have this sense, like, for example, you know, let's say you have a real draw to Egypt and you're like, I definitely have, like, I know deep in my bones, I lived a life there. There's something that's pulled me there, and there's some kind of limitation that was created there. I'm like, okay, let's go to that. And we will pinpoint that timeline. We will pinpoint that lifetime and go to that one specifically for that purpose. Now, I did this with an astrologer once because she was really interested in, like, why do I get all these downloads about things in astrology that I really don't know? And I've not learned about it, but I know all the information. And I was like, let's find out. And she was someone who studied the stars in ancient times and was creating books and things for people to understand and learn. I'm like, this is why you know this shit.
This is why you're called to it in this life as well, because it's part of your purpose, your soul's evolution to know this, learn this, teach this.
She was trying to pick up where she left off. And I think that's, you know, that in itself is insane. Like, there's so many beliefs around what we think these things are, but until we get into them and until we break that mold and that belief, we're like, oh, hang on a minute, this is actually, well, I don't know how to deal with this now. It's new, it's different. You know?
I mean, I could keep talking to you for hours. Absolute hours. It's been such a pleasure to have a conversation with you. Where can people find you? What's the best way? Do you work with people online, just in person? Tell us about that.
I do both. So I do work in a clinic in Brisbane at the Self-Love Lounge with my best friend. We decided we were going to combine forces. So we have a beauty and wellness clinic there. So I do all my in-person sessions there, and I do online remotely around the world. And yeah, you can find me. The best place is probably Instagram. And I do have a website. So I'm Elle.Embers and elleembers.com.
Amazing. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. Before we wrap up, I've got one final question for you. Elle Embers, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, the meaning of life, I feel like, is to experience. It is to create memories, to create connection, to feel all there is to feel, to learn all there is to learn, and to just have fun with it. Because I feel like if we do get to that review process, we're going to want to have something good to watch.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Elle, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show and being part of the Enlightenment podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightenment podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightenment_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightenment and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.